Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Adventure 14 here. So today we're going to be looking into the Adventure Time episode, The Orb. So I was watching this episode the other night, and I was laying there in bed watching it, and I started to kind of put together some of the puzzles and what the dreams meant, and then I fell asleep. So then after I fell asleep, I had this dream about Adventure Time Season 4. If you know the show very well, at the end of Season 4, the Lich comes back and forces Finn and Jake to go on this long mission and everything. It's complicated. But anyway, I dreamt that I was in Adventure Time Season 4, and all the way through Seasons 3 and 4, the Lich watched Finn and Jake as the snail. The snail's in every episode, and the Lich was possessing the snail, so the Lich was keeping an eye on what Finn and Jake were doing. But I realized what part of that episode meant, so I watched the episode 7 or 8 times when I woke up the next morning, and I pieced together what the whole episode means and what they meant throughout all the dream sequence stuff and the fears of Finn and Jake and BMO in these dreams. So the first part of the episode, we enter on this almost bad comedy skit, almost like a Friends type feel, where Jake walks in the door and says, "Hey, Jake's home!" And then Joshua enters with, "Hey, Joshua's home too!" And then they start into this very bad comedy skit that doesn't really make any sense. This being there kind of makes me think that maybe Jake has a fear of his life being scripted and meaningless, like a bad comedy TV show. And after that, we switch scenes for just a moment. This place is the original place where Joshua found the tablet back in the day to bring him to Keoth, and where Finn and Lady also went and got the tablet to go to Keoth to go rescue Jake in the episode The Pit. After that, for just a second, we switch to an empty hall with LED lights and empty canvases all over the walls, and then we switch to a destroyed version of their childhood home. Then we go back to our normal version of their childhood home. The room once again quickly fills up with empty canvases, which Jermaine is quick to say are his. What the canvases symbolize may just be his love to paint, like he said, but it also may symbolize the fact that his life is now empty. Maybe he feels meaningless just like Jake does. Not so much like a bad comedy skit, but just empty. He has very few friends, he doesn't have any kind of wife or girlfriend or anything like that, and he's really pushed people away, and he seems to be pretty alone, which may be what that symbolizes. He may only find usefulness in his painting, but maybe that isn't even enough. Maybe that's why he dreams of empty canvases instead of ones filled with pretty colors. And directly after that, he states that he doesn't like anything that's representational. He likes real things. Maybe he can't find anything real in his life, or at least that would be my my take on it, because he doesn't seem to be able to find anything real enough to hold on to. So after we get the beginning of Jake's dream sequence out of the way, we have the beginning of Finn's dream sequence. Finn starts off his dream sequence flying, which probably would stand for freedom, which flying usually does in dreams. It's your need for freedom, or you're feeling that you've been being locked down. You may find in the dream that you can fly for a certain amount of time, and then when you need it the most, you'll have the inability to fly. Like Finn did right here. When he ran into Princess Bubblegum, she told him that it was impossible for him to fly, even though he had just been doing it because he was a human boy and couldn't do it. And in the effort to prove her wrong, he tried to fly again, but found himself unable to fly, as if maybe he feels that Princess Bubblegum is holding him back. And if not holding him back from anything, this may be some leftover feelings from when he had the world's hugest crush on her back in Season 1 to 3. Personally, I doubt, though, that it had anything to do with that crush. It was probably the feeling of being held back by her and her overlogical mind. Finn tends to be a free thinker, and she's very robotic in thought. She makes calculations, scientific calculations, mathematics. Finn doesn't do any of that, he just goes with the wind. So then we move on to the beginning of BMO's dream sequence, where he's the director of a very famous play. Obviously, since there's a bunch of people, food in the audience. I believe this symbolizes the fact that BMO feels that he has to control his own destiny constantly. He's never just added into anything. He has to force himself into things, just like he did in Islands and Stakes. Well, not so much stakes. He was a little bit late on that when he showed up to Marceline's house. He was late on that one, but I mean otherwise. And now we come back around full circle back to Jake and Jermaine's dream sequence, where their father is now drawing a circle in the ground with the Elemental logo, this having happened right before the Element series. And he basically calls them lazy and tells them to dig. So they start to dig directly through the floor and dig a large hole. And a cloud of sadness seems to set upon them. They become very depressed and tired, and it seems dark and foreboding just around the hole in them. There's just a shadow where there shouldn't be one. And there's weird background noises and footprints on the ceiling. I don't know what the footprints on the ceiling mean. I can't seem to figure that one out. I'll be able to explain the cloud of darkness settling over them and the sadness when we come back to this dream sequence, but for now we're going to move back to Finn's dream sequence where he's going and landing Princess Bubblegum, and part of this I already explained where it feels trapped now. He can't seem to fly. And then he has some sort of weird horror sequence with teeth. I don't know if he has a fear of his teeth falling out or other people's teeth falling out, or it's some sort of complication with Princess Bubblegum or something that happened in the past, but I'm pretty confused. The only thing I can think of that it might have something to do with the traumatic experience of going to the dentist military base back several seasons. So in BMO's dream sequence, the play is still going on. Finn and Jake in the play are quite depressed, and they're waiting for BMO to get there in the play. So BMO shows up, but it looks like Amo and acts like Amo, but it's supposed to be the embodiment of BMO. This probably comes from the fear that BMO is going to be similar to Amo one day, or something will happen and Amo will come back somehow to hurt Finn and Jake, or others that he cares about, or even him. Also, this kind of imagery may come from BMO's fear that some part of Amo is in him, that he might be part of Amo still. They were created similarly. They were only a design apart, brand, mark. What even are Mo's? Like, they go like A, B, C, D. Amo, of course, is A, the first model, and then BMO, of course, is B, the second model. BMO was created to give love, and Amo was created to receive it. So since they were created similarly, with similar programming, BMO may be afraid that they too might be similar and there might be part of Amo's programming in him to cause him to hurt people, or maybe Amo's type of programming is pulling at the strings, something evil in himself that he's not totally aware of, and maybe he doesn't really see what he does, or he's only in the background. He can only produce the play. So this turn of events in the play quickly upsets BMO, who demands to talk to the director, even though he is the director. So he's taken to a room to talk to the director, and the director, in the chair facing back at him, is him. He quickly asks if it's Football, his imaginary mirror friend that may be some sort of spirit linked to him, or not so imaginary, or an alternate universe of him. I'm not really sure what that is or whatever. It could just be an imaginary friend still. Either way, it is not Football, it is Amo, and he is also the producer, bringing along the fear that he's almost a co-producer to BMO, that he may have half control. Either way, it all stems from the fear that maybe what BMO's doing isn't the right thing, and that maybe he makes situations worse and people will hate him. He's afraid of this because he's designed to give love by Mo. If he does horrible things and people hate him for it, he won't be able to give people his love, making him useless and obsolete. He doesn't want that. He wants to be able to give love and receive love back like any human does. Back in Jake and Jermaine's dream sequence, they're digging along just fine until the hole magically refills. They turn around to tell their father, Joshua, that the hole has refilled, but he's nowhere to be seen. He then calls up from below, telling them that they've buried him, asking them why they would do that. They frantically try to dig him up, but the floor seems to be indestructible now. So this is where things get extremely dark. Remember the cloud of darkness that settled over them that I had mentioned before? This cloud of darkness does signify sadness, the sadness of their father dying. Let's keep in mind that their father did die about 14 years ago, and Finn and Jake and Jermaine all had to go through that grief of watching their parents die before their eyes. It would be Finn's adopted father, Jake's kind of biological father, and Jermaine's correct biological father died, and they buried him somewhere behind the house. So Finn would have been very, very young when this happened, somewhere like maybe 6, maybe he was 6, when his father died. He was probably unable to stand and do the funeral stuff and dig holes and any of that, so he was probably not in that area, which would make sense that he's not here. But Jake and Jermaine had to go out and dig a hole to bury their father in behind their house, which is what this signifies. And they wanted to dig him back up to get him back, but they couldn't, and they know they can't because death is death. They're then quickly distracted by their mother in the background, who, if Joshua died first, would have been the second one to pass. So then suddenly we transition, and Jake is being held by his mother in a blanket, and he says, "I'm sure this is all very symbolic, but it's really comfy." So he's okay with this so far. Jake mentioning that this is all very symbolic and that it probably has meaning is a little hint to the audience, saying that this really means something and that it should be looked into. If you know the show well, you know that Jake has a big fear of vampires, except for Marceline, of course. So when his mother leans down to kiss him in this dream, she suddenly turns into a vampire and takes on a similar look to the moon, and drains him of blood and seemingly age. To Jake, vampirism most likely means ultimate death, meaning that his mother then also passed pretty soon after his father. And the fact that when she did die, it sucked the age and blood from him probably made him feel abandoned, alone, like he had to grow up fast because he had a little brother, Finn, to take care of after that. He couldn't just leave Finn on his own and go do whatever he wanted. Jermaine took more of a approach of just going and doing whatever for a small while and then watching their parents' stuff for quite a long time as a loyalty type thing, I believe. All of this imagery is most likely re-manifesting itself over and over and over because Jake never had time to mourn his parents' death. He had a little brother to take care of. He had to find a place for them to live. He had to teach Finn how to fight and how to do stuff. Everything that Finn learned was obviously from Jake after about the age of 7. After the life and blood is sucked out of Jake by his mother's death, he seems to want to crawl back to his parents, and he actually crawls up to the physical embodiment of his parents, but they just smile at him and won't help him. Most likely, he felt pretty abandoned by his parents dying because they basically died and he had a brother to take care of, and he needed help, but there was nobody there to help him. That would also explain why in the dream sequence right after Jake's mother died, Jermaine said, "I don't like where this is going, I'm out of here," and ran into one of the painting canvases and disappeared. That most likely signifies right after their mother's death, Jermaine ran off and just went and did whatever for a long time while Jake had nobody to help him and had to raise Finn by himself. Back in Finn's dream sequence, it is now starting to merge with Jake's dream sequence, and he can hear Jake calling for help. Finn finally, because he's needed, breaks free from the ground and flies up to the floating version of their childhood home to help his brother. This could, and it would slightly jeopardize the point I just made before about him being held back by Peebee, but he may just be able to not help himself, to prove himself to others. But when he's needed, he can prove himself, but maybe nobody sees it, or he's worried that nobody sees himself prove himself. They think of him as the little boy instead of the hero that he wants to be. Just another way to look at it. So then Finn flies up and lands in the house and finds Jake, and Jake exclaims that he's old in this shot, where we actually see a future Finn sword, because, you know, they gotta foreshadow the swords, like, are you kidding? Then it's shown that this scene of Finn and Jake's dream is now on the stage of BMO's dream where he's directing. Finn and Jake then all of a sudden have fake skins on, almost like a costume of themselves. And then they take them off and they look slightly different underneath. Finn doesn't have his hat, and Jake still looks older than normal, like he has crow's feet and looks like his skin is sagging and that he's aged quite a bit. This probably symbolizes that both of them being somewhat of celebrities and think that maybe they won't match up to what people expect. Finn, maybe he won't match up to be a hero, to have the hat always on, to be the symbol that he's made out to be. And then this still carries on to show that Jake is still afraid of being too old to age too fast since his parents' death. Then Finn and Jake are surrounded by other workers of BMO's play, who are other Mobots, telling them that they're really good and everything will be good. They're doing makeup. They're telling Finn that they really respect him for doing his own stunts, and they're telling Jake that they really think that they need to make him look younger, cover up the crow's feet so that people will believe that he's young enough to play Jake, even though he is Jake, which he even says, "But I am Jake." Then they're told that they need to be saying their lines, which are just weird noises such as given to them by a Mobot in front of the stage that has a shocking resemblance to the Lich. This was actually at the beginning of the video where I said about where I dreamt about Season 4. This is the part of the video that I figured out first, that Finn has a fear that the Lich is still in the background controlling his actions or has some sort of end goal, you know, pulling the strings. This part of the dream, even though it's all three of their dreams simultaneously now, is definitely just for Finn. Only Finn would have that much anxiety and have that much fear to have that in a dream. Jake, for the most part, is too flow with it now to have too much fear towards the Lich. BMO doesn't really have an ability to be afraid of the Lich because he's never really run into him or seen him. BMO only has what Finn and Jake have told him about the Lich to go on. He's never actually seen the Lich in real life. Finn then puts together that it is actually for real him and for real Jake and for real BMO all together in one dream, but he doesn't know what it means. He then discovers that Nightmare Princess has brought them into the same dream at the same time so that she could just ask them for bananas. So weird end to the episode, of course, because it's adventure time. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was an interesting one to make, and I'm kind of happy with myself that I figured all this out, because I'm not usually that good with like that representation, like seeing things like that and going like, oh yeah, he's having anxiety about his parents' death 14 years ago. Whoa, dude. So I definitely don't have those kind of epiphanies often. I'm an encyclopedia. I don't really figure this stuff out. I just memorize it. Though sometimes I figure it out. Like now. Also, some serious fans may notice that I left all the interpretation stuff for the next series, Elementals. It's a mini-series inside of Adventure Time for anybody who doesn't know. I left it out on purpose because, well, wasn't really a thing I wanted to get into. I can do a different video on Elementals if anybody wants it. I can definitely do other episodes like this if anybody wants them. If you have an episode that you want me to do one of these on, that you think that there's something to interpret there, something to figure out that I could do research on and figure out, just tell me what the episode is down in the comments and I'll try to get on it, especially if nobody else has done it. I haven't really seen anybody go too into depth on this one, I don't think, though maybe Uncivilized Elk did. He's one of the big Adventure Time YouTubers that's out there. He's pretty good. You should go check him out. I definitely would love to hear if you guys have any other episodes like this for me to do, though, because the only other ones that I have planned are the episode Hall of Egress, or maybe it's just Egress. I forget if it's Hall of Egress or just Egress, the name of the episode. And then the episode King Worm. So the episode King Worm wouldn't have that much to interpret overall, but there's some stuff there to check out. And also there's the theory about that episode and the rest of the seasons, which I'm going to most likely be disproving unless I can find something to prove it. It's an interesting theory. We'll have to check it out. And then the Hall of Egress, I don't know what that episode is. Nobody's ever really cracked that one. There's some sort of something to interpret there, but nobody's ever really done it. Alright, anyway, thank you guys. You can hear my dog tag things jingling. Yeah. Alright, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. I'm glad hopefully you enjoyed the video. I was going to say glad you did, but like, maybe you didn't. I don't know. Well, let me know if you did or didn't. There's a thumbs up button and a thumbs down button down there. You can definitely hit subscribe if you would like. I would very much appreciate it. And I can't talk today. Why can't I talk? I definitely appreciate it. And I will catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.